So when you brought the garbage home, did you tell your family beforehand that, okay, from now on, I'll be, start working with garbage? Did you tell them that?
Yes, I told my husband and my kid. My kid even said, "Why are you building castles in the sky at this old age, mom?" Yeah, and my husband, he said, "You must be crazy. This is a job for professors and doctorates, not you." Yeah, but they did not stop me from doing that. So no matter what they said, I still did it.
Trinh Thi Hong is a former factory worker and manager of a garment company in central city Da Nang. For weeks, when her neighborhood stunk of piled up trash, Hong dived into it, well, figuratively, picked and chose and experimented with organic waste and managed to convert it into cleaning products and mobilize her entire neighborhood to do it with her, in so doing providing jobs for 400 women. Hello, I'm your host, Sen Nguyen. Welcome to Descendants of Hai Ba Trinh, brought to you by the United Nations Development Program in Vietnam. This is where we focus on women-led climate change initiatives in Vietnam, and through their respective fields and journeys, explore the complexity and dimensions of gender equality issues. Now, if you don't know Hai Ba Trinh, they are these two elephant-riding sisters who summoned strength and bravery among local people to defend the country against the Đông Han dynasty from China and briefly ruled in what is now known as Northern Vietnam in early 40s decade AD. But in the 21st century, women are no longer riding elephants fighting the invaders. This podcast is about redefining the Hai Ba Trinh tradition. It is about women from different backgrounds and various ethnic groups in Vietnam across the entire country who have been mustering power in effecting change in the environmental pollution and climate change crisis, humanity's greatest threat. In this episode, the sky is the limit with Trinh Thi Hong, who without any formal training in biotechnology is now her own boss at Minh Biotechnology company in Da Nang City, where she turns household organic waste into toiletries, detergents, and dish soap, and so on. What exactly is her model of circular economy, and what are the lessons here for economic empowerment among women and innovations in waste management?
Thật ra thì nói nó là rác nhưng mà nó là những cái phế phẩm hữu cơ.
Actually, even though it is considered garbage, it's just organic stuff, vegetables and fruits. Only when thrown away will they become waste. As long as they haven't thrown it away, it's still usable. I told everyone in my neighborhood not to throw it away, but to bring it to my house, and they did it. When I was at work, everyone just hung bags of it on my gate. When I came home, I took them down, sorted them out, then washed them and recycled them. Of course, it affects my family. When I came back home, I had to clear those bags from the gate, and then I prepared meals for my family. After everything was done, I started sorting out the bags at night. I threw away what had gone bad and kept what is still usable. I washed and soaked them in sugar. I failed a few times at first because I was trying to figure out the formula, but after some time, I succeeded in turning them into cleaning liquid. Yeah, it takes a lot of time to create the product because this is not my expertise. So for people who are trained in this thing, if people were trained to do this, they could do it faster than me.
Okay, but to really appreciate her journey to arrive at the formula that transforms organic waste to toiletries and cleaning products, we gotta go back 10 years when it all began, when she saw trash piled up on the streets in her neighborhood in Da Nang because the trash collectors' trucks malfunctioned for days. She was like, we gotta do something.
Thì thành lập ra một cái đội gọi là đội thiếu niên bảo vệ môi trường.
I established the Youth Environmental Protection Team, consisting of all the children from kindergarten through 9th grade and the 9th graders as the team captain. On Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday afternoons, and Sunday mornings, the children gathered on all the streets in the residential area. If they saw anyone littering, they would advise them against it, and there are many funny stories. The kids are very proud of the team when they talk to their families. Yeah, the youth team is so much fun. Some people ask them, "What if you tell people not to litter, but they don't listen?" And they replied, "If people don't listen to us, we will tell Miss Hong."
Her youth volunteers were active for a while when she was invited to a seminar in Ho Chi Minh City to talk about her community activities. And from there, she was invited to a 2012 conference about Asian urban poverty and community development in the Philippines. It was also the first time she ever went abroad. There she heard about brewing waste to turn it into floor cleaners from a Thai environmentalist, and then an idea sparked. And she began her own experiment like a scientist.
Rồi sau đó chị không biết đó, là chị vào Google là chị tìm theo những cái mã về sinh học.
Then I did my research and learned about biology through Google. For example, how I should brew, what problems can occur during the brewing period, and when it works, what color and smell should the liquid have.
Thật ra thì thế này, lúc đầu về á, thì chị làm, thì chị cũng chưa dám làm rác đâu.
In fact, when I came back from the Philippines, I didn't think of recycling waste right away. And I picked and worked with Panama berries, you know? Panama berries are already sweet and have a lot of sugar. So when I add sugar, it doesn't spoil. It smells good and it works well together. So when that worked, I started bringing waste home. But at first, I didn't ask people to bring waste to my house. I swept and collected flowers falling on the streets and brought them home to wash. I asked my niece to work with me. The waste on the streets is very dirty, and washing it also consumes a lot of water. So I started asking 2 to 3 families nearby to bring me their waste. Actually, the brewing part was very fast, but it took a long time to turn it into soap. Anyone who uses the cleaning liquid I made likes it, and they asked, "Hong, can you make it thicker and foamier?" Yeah, even though it cleans things, it doesn't foam. To people, without the thickness and the foam, they might think the liquid doesn't clean. Someone also told me to go on Google to learn how to make it thicker and add colors to it, you know, because it is organic matter and it gets precipitated. It is very hard for me to work with it. Once I managed to make the liquid thick, I Googled how to make the foam without using inorganic chemicals. So I found organic coconut extract. Then I go back to my hometown to find the motails that we often use to wash our hair, and it makes foam, you know? There are many ways to do this. At some point, when I brewed the vegetables and fruits with sugar and stuff, it got rotten and stunk like sugar. There were many problems, and I didn't know why it stunk. Every time I failed, I went on my computer and find out why it was rotten.
When Hong managed to create a somewhat finished cleaning product made entirely of organic waste, she wanted to see if it met health and quality standards, and she brought it to the state-run Quality Assurance and Testing Center 2 in Da Nang to be tested. But it didn't work like that. There was a lot of bureaucracy and procedures she didn't anticipate.
Họ hỏi chị á, họ bảo chị là chị ghi trong đó có chất gì?
They told me to write down what was in it. Usually people who are familiar with chemicals would know substance A, substance B, substance C. What's the percentage? But I was clueless. So I just said, "Gosh, I don't know what's in here. I just brought it down here for them to check if it's good or not, if it's safe for human health. So I had to bring it back home. But then I got lucky. There was a journalist who interviewed me about what I was doing. He asked me, "What support do you need from the government?" And I said, "Oh yes, I guess I need many things from the government. And I especially need them to set the standards for me to check the quality of my product." And I didn't even know how to use the word standard back then. I just said, "How can I test what's in it? And is it good for our health?" And maybe because of the journalist, after that, the chairman of Da Nang City Committee told the Department of Science and Technology to call me. I also invited them to my house and gave the head of the development department 2 bottles of my product. She found it fine and asked her leaders to come to my house. Heads of the Department of Science and Technology and the Department of Health, then the People's Committee of Lianqiu District. And after that, they made a report and a supporting letter for me. Only then did I have the standards for product testing. Now I am familiar with the process. So the whole process felt like I was walking on clouds every day. I had to get up at 2 a.m. and work on my computer and see where things went wrong and how I could fix it. It was not until 2016 that I managed to nail the product down.
It took 4 years for the complete formula of her cleaning products to come together. So the base of the product includes water, sugar, and the fruits and vegetables, and their proportion vary depending on the type of fruit and vegetable being used, and also the kind of cleaning product she wants to make. When brewed for a set amount of time, the combination will generate microorganisms that act as disinfection agents. They're integral part of her line of products, including dishwashers, laundry detergent, floor cleaners, hand sanitizers, and shampoos. But her circular economy model stands out not only because she recycles organic waste, but because she gave this formula to about 400 underprivileged women in Da Nang so they themselves can make the base product and then bring it to her company and get paid about 3 million Vietnam dong, or about $120 for every 1,000 liters of base product they make. After that, her staff takes the base product into critically technical steps, including decontamination, before they package it and distribute it.
Tại vì thật ra có nhiều người khổ lắm em.
Many people's lives are just really difficult because I was the president of the charity association. I was looking for funding to support them. There was this family who only had 900,000 Vietnam dong each month to feed 3 people. I cannot imagine how they could live with such little money. Like Miss Nguyễn Thị Tập, a 79-year-old with no money, she had to take care of her 2 grandkids because she lost her children. I have her produce the base product for me. That 3 million dong a month will not make them rich, but at least it can help keep them from going hungry.
The nuance here is, though, Hong told me, is that the availability of a way to generate an income does not make people with economic difficulties jump right into it. She talked about the multidimensional poverty of the woman she approached.
Người nghèo họ không chỉ nghèo về tiền bạc mà họ nghèo về cái suy nghĩ.
But actually, we have to be very realistic. Poor people are not only poor in terms of money, but also poor in thinking. Rich people accumulate their wealth from earning 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 dong, and poor people just want to get a lump of money instead of working for 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000 dong. When I started running this program, poor people were not willing to engage, only better off ones. So I had to get leaders of the residents and women groups, the farmers' union leaders, and veterans involved, and told them to make the base product. When they picked up the money from their work, I called the poor to come and see. Only then did it start. Like when Miss Lee, a wealthy leader of the residents, made the base product for me, and I told Miss Thum, a poor lady next door, to come and watch and tell her, look how fun the work was. And she saw Lee get paid, and only then did she want to join. And after she did, many other poor people wanted to join too. And I often tell people that they don't work here to get rich. They work to make a living, to pay for electricity, water, internet, and phone bills in the house. And then slowly we will climb up the ladder from there.
Hong was speaking from experience. She herself rose from next to nothing.
Nói chung cuộc đời chị thì nó nhiều thăng trầm lắm.
Back then, I only finished primary school because my family was very poor. My father passed away when my mother was 6 months pregnant with me. And then she passed away too when I was only 1 month and 8 days old. After that, I lost my family because of the war. When I was around 2 to 3 years old, some soldiers found me and they brought me to the mountains and raised me. I traveled to the north, then the south. Because I was an orphan, I was admitted to Tam Kỳ boarding school, which later dissolved when I finished 5th grade. I started to collect aluminum and plastic and made a living by collecting those. Until the end of the 9th grade, I went to Da Nang to look for a job. I worked during the day, went to school at night, and I finished grade 12. I studied for an intermediate degree in finance, accounting, and business administration. My life has many ups and downs. Before I started doing community work, I was working as a director of a foreign company in the garment industry. There, I worked for a month and a half as a garment worker. Then I became a manager, and then 2 years later, to a department head. And 3 years later, I was promoted to director. It took me like 15 years. Then I got sick, and it turned out that I had early-stage breast cancer. I was at the hospital for 2 years because of radiation therapy. When I came home from the hospital, I quit my job because I was not healthy enough to do it. I couldn't even walk. I had to crawl. The treatment was quite harmful to my health. I even had to sell my house to afford treatment. But for some reasons, I think this whole thing is a godsend. Thanks to the environmental youth team with whom I cleaned up the street, I was in close contact with the garbage and then came up with this model.
Up to now, the number of participants in Hong's circular economy model is about 400 women, and they are divided into 2 groups. About 140 women make the product base following her instruction and using her formula in exchange for an income, and this group has a more challenging and urgent economic background. This number fluctuates because the system is not built to keep them permanently, but the income from it will open doors to other opportunities. The rest of the group also makes a product base, but in exchange for the final finished product to use, making them the active participants in the making of the products they and their families use. When I asked Hong why she chose to recruit only women for her model, she said,
Thực ra là chị vẫn thường nói với mọi người là phụ nữ nó rất là khổ.
In fact, I often tell people that it is very tough for women. At home, they have to take care of the family's finances, worrying about every meal. Even children's education is also a woman's job. The best that most men can do is to make money and give it to their wives, but handling a family spending is really tough. So I must prioritize women. In anything I do, I believe that being a woman is already very disadvantaged. So I try to help them as much as I can. No matter what we do, be it big or small, being a mother, a wife, or a grandmother is still the thing that comes first for a woman. If women have an understanding husband, a sympathetic mother-in-law, it will lessen the mental burden for them a lot. In our society, I think the idea of valuing men over women is still very prevalent. Even for me, when I was researching this, someone even asked, "Did you do the research or your husband?" You see, that clearly shows the notion that women cannot do anything. They can only rely on men. And that mindset makes many women lose their self-esteem, instill fears in them, resulting in them not wanting to thrive. I do it for all women, and I want to prove that women do not lose to men in any aspect at all. I often say that if women do not have the responsibility to be mothers, wives, and grandmothers, they can excel in things 1,000 times better than men. And really, the idea of valuing men over women has been a great pressure for women. When working in a government agency or anywhere, we see when people shake someone's hands, they will shake the man's hands first, and then the women. Sometimes they don't even want to shake hands with women. Those are the pressure on women, and I wish that all women can fight back and get out their shells so they can have an equal position in the family, not to mention society.
Để mà gọi là thúc đẩy cái sự chuyển đổi qua kinh tế tuần hoàn.
In order to accelerate the transition to the circular economy, I have to do so many things.
Kim Lê Lạch Hồng is a businesswoman pioneering the promotion of the circular economy as the CEO of CL2B, a consulting firm based in Ho Chi Minh City.
Đấy là mình gặp gỡ các bên từ cơ quan chính quyền, nhà nước.
I have to meet with relevant stakeholders, from the government agencies to manufacturers, then NGOs and other organizations, to connect them and to bring them together to work on the same goals of sustainable development.
Kim compared working as a circular economy consultant with the role làm dâu trăm họ, or a daughter-in-law of hundreds of families, a Vietnamese idiom that refers to the pressure to please everyone when a woman is married into a new family. Her job requires her to be flexible, to adapt and work with many stakeholders across a diverse range of sectors, construction, clothing, accounting, etc., to apply the circular economy model in Vietnam, while this is still a new thing here and in many other countries.
Bởi vì cái vấn đề môi trường nó không bao giờ đi một mình cả.
Environmental problems usually come with social problems, and the circular economy is usually related to the economic sector. So as we work within this area, we see that certain groups and issues closely intertwine and interact with each other. However, as a female professional, I felt myself lucky because everyone respects each other in the sustainable development sector, right? But when I work with people in different sectors to implement a project, it is very different. I don't just work with one department in one company, so it is difficult to convince all the department involved to go along with the project deeper through the process. For example, working with a construction company in the construction sector is very challenging because it has its own characteristic and working culture. Like when I work with a technical person on how to improve the communication and the system, I had to request to see their data. You know, nowadays everything needs data, right? Without it, we cannot analyze what they have or not at the moment. But then it creates friction with the head of the department as they see it as a form of criticism. Even after I try to explain to them and say superiors, they still have an attitude toward me because they see me as a young woman coming from a different sector and lacking of technical capacity. To be honest, I do not see myself as a technical person either because it's not my background, but I do have colleagues in my team with better technical capacity than me. That is why I see better communication is very important, because without communication, there's no collaboration, which makes it more difficult to implement initiatives or ideas and changes, as well as generate improvement. We are just a consultant unit, not an implementation unit, so we cannot go inside our clients' operations to monitor them or to do the work with them. However, I also come across stakeholders across sectors who do not understand why and how sustainable development and circular economy are related to their production and technical maintenance side of things. So they find it very bothersome and then ignore it. So they told me that I was I was woman, so I had no right to talk to them. In this situation, I was very sad, but I keep trying and doing my things.
According to Kim, there are two levels of circular economy transformation. One is at micro level and the second is systematic change. Micro level is about business, like Hong's biotechnology company in Da Nang. But for systematic change, criteria for circular economy models has not been regulated by the state, and the basis for implementing these models is insufficient, and there are not yet specific regulation for each sector and industry to implement circular economy. This is a challenge for advocates and consultants like Kim because
bởi vì là có cái chỗ đấy là mình phải chứng minh với khách hàng đây là cái khung tốt nhất cho họ.
The challenge here is how to prove to our customer that ours is the best framework for them to work with when there is not yet a state-regulated framework. But like any other systems, we need to define what needs to be changed from the micro to the macro level. For example, let's take the case of Da Nang. We need to determine its economic characteristics, then raw materials required for its economic activities, what is the quantity, what products will be made, and what is their life cycle. Then we work with businesses within the supply chain to reduce waste, to increase recycling and circular rate, and optimize the raw materials. Afterward, these businesses will set their strategies and targets toward the circular economy goals. Every industry has its own challenges: working environment, management system, waste infrastructure. So ultimately, the government needs to devise a legal framework and set clear targets for circular economies, as well as its orientations and implementation across regions, provinces, and businesses.
when system change is still in the making, people like Kim and Hong will still continue to implement grassroots initiatives and strategies to maintain the circular economy in their respective fields.
Và bây giờ là chỉ có thêm một cái dự án nữa.
Right now, I have another project which helps farmers learn to grow herbs that can be used to produce beauty products. Because I come from the countryside and I work in Da Nang, but I'm still yearning to go back to my hometown to help people who used to raise me. They are all dead, but their children and grandchildren are still there, and I think they need to innovate and have a different vision. First, the project will give them jobs. Second, growing herbs will cover the bare hills, protecting the cuticle of the soil. And I also want to establish a cooperative out of the herb-based beauty products. You see how beautiful my skin is. This is only 1 week after using it.
Are you advertising right now?
Yes, of course. Why not?
Thank you, chị Trinh Thi Hong and Kim Lê. I can't wait to see what you both are up to next. That's a wrap. You just listened to the podcast Descendants of Hai Bà Trưng, brought to you by the United Nations Development Program, where we share inspiring stories about women and their fierce action to combat the climate crisis and build the resilience of their communities and ecosystems to the impacts of climate change. I'm Sen Nguyen. Don't forget to spread the words and let us know what you think, and I'll see you in the next episode.